Okay, well, man, obviously we're here to talk Texas, but I just want to ask you real quick. I mean, do you think Elko and company, do you think they were looking ahead last week? Because, hell, I'll give them credit. I didn't think on the road, Jordan-Hare Stadium, down 21-0, I didn't think there's any shot in hell they could come back from that. And you can make the case they should have won that damn game. So, I mean, they showed a lot, I thought, on the road, even in a loss, but even if it's 1%, they were looking ahead to this week.
I think if there's a nature of sports, I think it's a fair question to ask. I just don't think there was nothing to the Elko quote. I think that was just all of us. And I wasn't involved in that side of it that time because it was A&M coach saying it, but all of us jackasses, if Sark would have said it, I'd have been all over it. But I think it was, if you heard that question and if you'd heard the entire presser, there was so much about Texas. So when he answers and says Texas, it's almost like the question, it was specifically about Texas. So no, I know what their preparation was during the bye week, during the week leading up to Auburn. I know how Mike Elko coaches. I know the message he's sending his players. I know what he said in the locker room before they even left the locker room after New Mexico State. I think that's just 2024 social media, and you slip up like that. People are going to have a field day with it, and it just, what's coming if you lose. I think if A&M wins this weekend, they should recycle that quote and say, yeah, I guess all that extra preparation paid off. But no, I think it is the nature of 18 to 22-year-old athletes that are trying to learn how to win. And I think if you're a great team, if you're an established Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, I walked in the door here, and from the second I got in here, everyone in the building knew what it took to win the SEC, to win national championships week after week after week. I think simply what you saw on Saturday night was two things. We knew it was going to be a very difficult game, right? If there was any looking ahead, it was subconscious by a team that's yet to learn, what it takes to win week in and week out in this conference. And I think that's why you can look at any of these first-year coaches in the league, any of the coaches that are here, and go look at their first year. Even Brian Kelly, who went 9-3 and won the West in year one, they walked into Kyle Field and got lost by 15 points and got smoked by an A&M team that was 4-7 coming in. So unless you're great culturally, and I don't think you can expect that in year one of a team that was under 500 combined the last 2 years, unless you're there culturally, no matter what you say, no matter how you prepare, no matter how much, that group thought they were focused, I don't think it's out of the question that they walked in there and weren't ready for what Auburn hit them with. They got ambushed. And that also happened at South Carolina, one SEC game ago. So I just think it's something that good SEC teams versus great versus elite. Elite goes on the road, they win those type games, they show up, they put their foot on their throat early, and they dispose of them. This team is not elite. This is a good SEC team, and they've gone and taken a couple lumps. And like you said, they recovered both times. They tied up South Carolina before halftime, even took the lead. They took the lead against Auburn late, outscored them by 21 in the final three quarters. But those starts, ultimately, there's a million plays later in the game you can point to, right, Mike? But it's the start is why you lost. I mean, I know you went ahead. I know you went ahead of South Carolina, but you spot a good team in South Carolina and you spot a hungry and talented team in Auburn, that many points, and that's where you can singularly go to for the blame. So it is something that I think they need to learn and continue to prove that they've overcome. Unfortunately, well, we'll see. If they win Saturday night, they'll get another chance to show it. Not that anyone's going to be looking past Georgia. See, I just did it. See, I'm overlooking Georgia for Auburn next year. Sue me.
Is this the biggest game in Texas A&M history that you can think of? I mean, even going back to Johnny Manziel era, I mean, there were some huge games, but everything on the line, the rivalry, playoff, SEC, on and on and on. It's hard to imagine a bigger game since 1939.
There's not one. There's not one. I mean, there's some big games. Look, there's a Texas and A&M game that was played, I believe, in the 80s that was had national title implications later in the season outside of the SEC. I mean, outside of the Southwest Conference. So a lot of Aggies will point to that one. That was 40 plus years ago. With college football today and the spotlight and Texas coming back into the conference, or not back, coming back into A&M's conference, joining the league in year one, A&M in year one under a new head coach, the loser not going to Atlanta, the winner going. So it's like a double win there for whoever does, and it makes that loss that much more painful. Yeah, it is. And look, for A&M, and I know this sounds preposterous right now, and I get it, but I mean, if you're in that locker room, you have to believe like this as it. You keep your national title dream alive. You keep your SEC title dream alive. Clearly, to do something no A&M team has ever done in 13 years, which is advance to play in the SEC title game. I think that's a wall you'd absolutely want to kick down and do so at Texas' expense would make it that much better. But also, like, this A&M team's trying to get to the playoffs, and they've got to beat Texas to get a chance to beat Georgia to get in. And then when you get in, you look at that field last night, because the committee sucked so bad, anything can happen. So, yeah, I mean, there's so much on the line, and it being Texas coming into your conference and knocking on the door, winning the conference in year one. I know they're going to the playoffs regardless, but you got to keep them from beating you on your field and keeping you out of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, the game hadn't been played in 13 years. And oh, by the way, what Mike Elko and this program stand to gain if they win this game and win the biggest game in the country this weekend, bigger than the Iron Bowl, bigger than Michigan, Ohio State. This is the biggest game in college football. A&M's played in a lot of massive games this year in year one under Elko. I can think of, Notre Dame, the Missouri game, the Aggies, Mizzou was a top 10 team coming in. Obviously, the LSU game was arguably the game of the week that week in college football. This one, they've played in a ton, and you could set yourself up for a whole nother one with a win, and also forget all the bigness that is Texas. You could knock off a top 10 team at home for the third time this year. That is a wild level of success in year one of a head coach if Elko and the Aggies can pull that off.
Mm-hmm. And this is the week, of course, to be thankful. Thanksgiving right around the corner. Appreciate you taking time on a holiday here. But how thankful are you that we're getting this game back on the field? And there's still going to be trash talk, but hell, you are like in the eye of the storm of the trash talk. And I'm tired of seeing it for 13 years without an actual game to back it up. How thankful are you that it's finally here and the winner will have bragging rights for 364 days?
Yeah, it's like, when you're growing up and there's the friends you have that just talk, and all you have to do is kind of stick an arm out and you can hold them back doing all this. And, that's how I feel like we've been the Aggies and Longhorns for 13 years, and the rest of the SEC and college football is just like, all right, guys, chill out. Come on. Okay. And now it's the actual fight. Saturday night is the actual fight. The punches are going to fly. There's no holding anybody back anymore. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. I am thankful that the rivalry's back on. I've said this multiple outlets this week. As someone that covered A&M in the Big 12 and someone that covered A&M their entire time in the Big 12, just about, basically. Their entire time in the SEC. It's 13 years. They were 16 in the Big 12, 13 now in the SEC. As crazy as that sounds, I don't think Aggie fans realize that we're almost equal amounts of time in these two conferences. For 13 years, it's been fun. The road trips have been incredible. the opposing fan bases, getting to know them, and I love the fact that I'm covering just A&M, but it feels like somehow it's transcended wherever we go, where it's TexAgs or my interaction with fans. I've gotten to know people around the conference, whether it's media, whether it's the fans. It's awesome. There's no comparison. I've been telling Texas and OU fans they're finding that out now, where you can be OU and you can suck all year, and you can beat Alabama at home and have one of your favorite football memories of all time because you kept getting chances to do it. And you failed against Texas and you failed against Tennessee, and then boom, you get to beat Alabama at home in front of your fans. So that's the cool part about it, is the goal is to win and be elite and win championships. But this league offers, as we've seen this year, every weekend the unthinkable can happen. Every weekend it can be Zach Calzada beating Alabama. You don't have to have Johnny Manziel to do it. You never know what's going to happen. DJ Lagway knocking off Ole Miss. It's just everything about it's been incredible except one thing. Texas A&M has never had a rival since they joined this league. And they not only they're not playing Texas out of conference, but they don't have a conference rival, but they haven't had a rival, period. And you saw that baseball game last year with Texas in that regional. Yeah. And you see like softball played Texas in a super regional that most, I don't know how many of the listeners followed that, but that was a 3-game like epic series with the Aggies and Longhorns in Austin. Like, it doesn't matter the sport. Texas A&M has lacked that since they joined the conference. So I am excited, and there's no better way to – I've always said when these two teams play again, do not let it be in the damn Meineke Car Care Bowl or the Texas Bowl, which I'm a big fan of people that run the Texas Bowl. But a 7-5 A&M against a 6-6 Texas was not going to cut it. I don't like it needed to be in the playoff or the Cotton Bowl or the Sugar Bowl. In my wildest dreams, did I not think it would be like this. 2 SEC teams playing with what's at stake, where it literally the winner goes home. I mean, loser goes home, winner goes to Atlanta.
Hey, I know we get caught up and we get focused on like this game because it is big. It's monumental. But big picture, don't you kind of feel like you're already playing with house money? That first year Elko is not only being competitive in the SEC, but by God, he's about to go to an SEC championship game. He's about to go to college football playoffs. You look at a team like Florida, Billy Napier, third season, they're having parades down there because he just got to 6 wins. And here you are, first year, making potentially the playoffs. I mean, big picture, what do you think the future of Aggie football looks like now?
I really love where it's going. And a lot of that, like you said, Shane, you can go, and Aggie fans, they don't want to hear this right now because the Aggies just lost to a 4-7 or whatever, 4-6 Auburn team. Okay, and I get it. It's a game they should have won. I don't know that you say they should have won it based off of talent. You're looking at NFL draft picks and things like that. They should have won it because the 10 games prior of this season tell you that Texas A&M is a better football team. They have been during the year. So that's why you should go win. You, in no way taking that for granted, as this league's proven this year, but it's a disappointing loss. I get it. So there's disappointment, and I think there's trepidation right now with the fan base because Texas is coming in. They're one of the 2 best teams you've played all year. So I understand, like, the angst or whatever. They have knocked off 2 top 10 teams, okay? And I know somebody will say, well, neither one of them are LSU and Missouri. Doesn't matter. Historically, go back and look how many times A&M's knocked off 2 top 10 teams in the season. That's always the case. They move around. Everybody claims them. 2 top 10 wins. Like we talked about earlier, how relevant and in the conversation they've been all year in year one. And then just go compare it to any of these teams in year one. Just go compare it to any of the Steve Sarkisian, Josh Heupel. Who else? You mentioned Napier. there's a bunch of, like, I don't know what Lane Kiffin's record was in year one at Ole Miss. Just go down the list. Kirby Smart, how about that one? He inherited a team that was way up under Mark Richt. So it's very hard to do what he's done, even if they go 8-4. 8-4 with 3 straight SEC losses after starting 5-0. It's going to leave a real sour taste. 9-3 and going to the SEC title game, and maybe beyond, and having 3 top 10 wins and beating Texas at home. I think it's wilder than anything anyone would have expected. That's an Aggie fan, or when Mike Elko was hired. And I think at that point he should get legitimate Coach of the Year consideration, even if he's coming from kind of a dark horse. When you look at the complete body of work, damn, he'd have a really strong case. And more importantly, Shane, moving forward, just knowing what I know about the way he's approached his program, his players, developing a culture, the discipline, the NIL, the fundraising for NIL, and the individual commitment he's put into that during the offseason, the roster management, roster building, the portal, listening to him talk, hearing his plan both on record and off record. I've not been more encouraged about a very steady ascent here under him than I have in a while. There's been, Kevin Sumlin jumped in and took the world by storm. Jimbo came in with the resume. So I've seen it all. And I like the idea of just being able to say, this guy gets it. And the early returns have been pretty impressive.
Well, Billy, everybody knows you as a Texas instigator, I
was like, no, me as what?
But if they actually listen to what you have to say, going back, hell, we had you in studio back in March, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you praised them, and you said they're set up for success. And I've heard you say nothing but basically that the whole season. And you hit on something important. Elite teams go on the road and win games like this. And there's only two teams that have done that I can think of in this conference this year. Georgia beating Texas, we just whooped them in Austin, and Alabama beating LSU at night. And then, of course, Alabama collapsed. So I'm not saying they're elite, but if Texas were to go into Kyle Field and beat A&M, I don't care if it's by 1 point.
Yeah.
Would you say this is the makings of an elite Texas team?
Yeah, for this year. I talked to one of the Texas websites and a couple of guys I've known for a long time last night, and I said this, I think both of these things can be true. And what I'll say, I'm going to get raked because of all the things I said about the Sark hire and Texas not being ready for the SEC. But over the last couple of years, I've been pretty adamant, and I know you've talked to me where I said Texas and Sarkisian are building an SEC program over there. I didn't feel like Venables and Oklahoma were. And going into this year, Texas is going to be really damn good. I think I said they should have been outside of the top 5 because of what they lost. I wanted to see some more consistency. Felt like they flirted with too many losses to some average Big 12 teams the year prior. And I've also been pretty vocal about, I think their schedule has been pretty damn weak. And I still think that. And I think A&M got a good hand dealt to them. Look, they were beating 2 unranked. I know South Carolina's rolling up the rankings right now, and they should be. But they were beating 2 unranked teams away from already being clinched in. It's never easy in the SEC, but Texas had been given a very easy hand. What I also said, though, if they come into A&M, into Kyle Field at night and beat a good A&M team and then go to Atlanta and avenge their loss for Georgia, no one can say anything. And I think both things can be true, guys. This isn't 2005 Texas with Vince Young and Mac Brown's team. This isn't all these great Bama teams I saw under Nick Saban. It's not the great OU teams I saw in the Big 12 under Bob Stoops. It's not the recent vintage, maybe up until this year, Kirby Smart teams at Georgia. But it can also be true that they're good enough to win a national title this year. I think both things are true. In other words, this is a one of the best teams in the country in Texas. I fully believe that's true. I think they haven't been tested very much in terms of the schedule. This is their first road night game of the year in Game 12. It's their other conference road games have been Arkansas at 11 a.m. and Vandy. But at the same time, I think this is a team that has the potential to beat an A&M, to beat a Georgia and win the SEC and go on and beat more good teams in the playoffs. So I think both can be true. And I think Texas is a damn good football team coming in here. I think they're better than Notre Dame. Therefore, it's the best team A&M's played this season. And now it's up to the Aggies to show, like, I think these really good SEC teams can do this. They're a lot better at home than they are away. I think that's what this year, and you just made a point about it. That's what separates the elite from the good. A&M's still a good team. Texas has to prove they're elite these next couple weeks. And, A&M's got to prove that, hey, we're more than good. So far, I think their resume says they're good. If they want to prove they're more than good, then beat number 3 and go shock Georgia and the rest of the country. I mean, that's where we're at right now. So Texas is trying to prove they're elite. A&M's trying to prove they belong.
What's your biggest concern? I mean, because you talked about consistency, and it feels like every team in the SEC has not been consistent.
Yeah.
There's always been a weak pop-up. There's been a flaw that's been exposed. Is there something that's worrying you about your squad coming into this football game?
Yeah, I think, guys, I think if you'd asked me a couple weeks ago, it wouldn't have been nearly as much. It probably would have been, hey, Marcel Reed is so inexperienced still. He's had some incredible moments. Thought he played pretty damn well against Auburn last week for the most part. But my concern would have been you're watching a young quarterback learn on the fly at Williams-Brice, at Jordan-Hare, against LSU, against Texas. That would have been my primary concern. Now there's no Le'Veon Moss, and Amari Daniels I think he should have a medal right now for how that kid's playing. He's been a total badass. But Le'Veon Moss was one of the best running backs in the country. If you watched A&M this year, he was right there with, backs that you're going to see at Tennessee and that you're going to see at Auburn. They just saw Hunter. Imagine Auburn without Jarquez Hunter last week or any week. Le'Veon Moss was right there with those guys. And my concern is, can A&M consistently run the football with just enough success to stay ahead of the chain? Then Marcel Reed can work some magic. But if you put the Aggies behind the chains against that Texas pass rush and defense, then that's where, no matter how mobile your quarterback is, he'll have a problem. So can A&M run enough to not abandon it? That will be my question there. And then when Texas has the ball, this is what I didn't think would be a concern a couple weeks ago, because they had Le'Veon. So that first one I wasn't real concerned with. They are getting Chase Besantis back. He played a little last week. That dude's an alpha up there at left guard. He's going to be really big to have him back in the mix. But defensively, when they got done playing A&M, when they got done with that game, LSU, I'm sorry. When they got done at LSU, I saw a defense that forced 3 turnovers. They made Garrett Nussmeier look like he didn't know what was going on. They whipped Will Campbell and the right tackle. They whooped them for the entire second half. The D-line got after them. And I thought, man, this defense has turned the corner. They're really playing like what we thought heading into the season. The last 2 weeks, I've seen big play after big play allowed. I've seen missed tackles. I've seen busted coverages in a big way. I've seen teams that don't score a lot of points. So that's my concern, is just defense in general. And if A&M wins this game, that defensive line has to shake out of this, and they have to take Quinn Ewers down. They have to hit him as he throws. They have to rush him. They have to take him down. They have to put him in second and third and long so Mike Elko can confuse Quinn with looks and things. So the defense is going to have to play at a completely different level than I've seen the last couple weeks. So my concern is I have not seen that level of defense in the last 2 conference games.
Hey, Billy, I know you got to run. So one final thing real quick. And I'm not saying if, Billy, I'll let you know now. I'm saying when. When
Okay.
Texas A&M beats Texas. That's my prediction.
Let's go.
The end of the night. Well, hopefully it's Sunday morning by this time. What is just a rough estimate on Billy Liucci's bar tab when he's closing
Wait,
out?
are you and Shane coming?
Shit, we can't afford that game.
You just needed to tell me. I would have set it up. Bar tab, when they win, as you said. I mean, I'd like to think I'm drinking for free, but that might just be me. But yeah, I mean, we can put it on TexAgs. Why not? We did the Jello shot challenge in Omaha. They got me all gassed up on that one right before they played Shane's Vols. So I think we bought like 1,000 Jello shots at $5 each. So that we'd probably have to top that one. Northgate will be very happy. My crew over there at Good Bull and Chimmy's, they'd be real happy to see me.
All right, Billy. Well, hey, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the game, man. And looking forward to catching up at some other point.
All right, guys. Talk to y'all soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully Atlanta.
See you, buddy.
Hopefully Atlanta. It's a short trip. I know you guys can afford that one.
Absolutely. If you need bail money, let me know. All right.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
See ya.